it works. Thank fucking God that works. How do you do, everybody? It has been one absolute motherfucker of a day. And welcome in the YouTube chat to Dr. Penis. I welcome everybody who drops by. It has been an absolute motherfucker of a day. But the important thing is, still haven't had a cigarette, so the streams keep going. The streams keep going until my mental fortitude drops and I collapse into a puddle of nicotine and start smoking again. Until such point, the streams will continue. You know, it's almost like a really vague threat. Just until I break my oath to myself that I would quit smoking, you will have to deal with me. But it is Wednesday. Is the statement it's Wednesday, my dudes? Well, it's almost not Wednesday for me. Wednesday is almost over, thank fucking God. And yeah, just a tough day all round. Short people and having a hell of a time. So, you know what? There's a few little bits and pieces in terms of news and everything, but in a relatively strange thing that just got posted, and having a look. Instead of me turning my head to look off here, which is off camera, like I've got some neck problem, I'm instead going to bring this window across so that I can actually see it and look towards the camera. You know, be like a smart person. Someone just tagged into the Discord to basically say that Jeff Grubb, the famous Jeffy Grubb of Giant Bomb fame, has said on actually in a YouTube video, I think for Game Mess Mornings or something to that degree. I don't expect big things from the state of play either. I think this is mostly going to be one of those, as much as we keep saying Sony has to talk about stuff, I think it's going to be a mostly disappointing state of play once again. This only just came up like a few minutes ago, and that kind of strikes me as strange. I would have thought that, you know, you'd want to kind of push out there, go hard, do some good stuff. I hope so. You know, who doesn't want to see some cool shit from Sony? If anybody doesn't want to see cool shit from Sony, I'm sorry, but he always seems to want to talk badly about Sony, to be honest. Well, I'm sorry, everybody, when they're not performing, needs to be talked about. That's, I think, a reality that kind of sits out there. I'd find it strange, though. Like, I quite like the state of play sort of events, because a shorter event... Oh, Max Horn Music. G'day, sir. We were actually talking about you in a stream last week. I was... somebody had asked about my voice... whether I'd actually done any voice acting before, and I'd mentioned I haven't done any professional, but have sung The Saga Begins in front of the Mana Bar with you. And yeah, and basically told that story of you coming up with the acoustic guitar and us just, you know, breaking out into song in the front of the bar. Good memories, very good memories. Hey, we've got a follow. Oh, thank you very much, man, for following me. And for some reason now I've got this really weird music. I need to change that. It was actually meant to be. Now, I need to see, this could really backfire on me, because I haven't tested this since I set it up. It is meant to be this.
Ah! Have we got any aloe?
it's meant to be that to scare the living shit out of me whenever anybody follows or starts watching the streams, but it never plays. It plays this it plays this random music that I've never heard before, and I cannot find. If anybody knows anything about Twitch and can tell me where to find that they've decided this generic kind of inspirate, it almost sounds like what is it? The Chariots of Fire, like. Da-na-na-na-na. It's almost like that, as if it's meant to be inspirational. Somebody's followed you. Quick, hooray. Dr. Penis in the YouTube chat, I think they'll have some decent stuff. I agree, I hope. I actually think, if anything, a lot of people are saying like Ghost of Yotai and Death Stranding 2. I am really interested. I think it was end of last week, Friday last week, I was actually talking about Death Stranding and going back and playing that. The first time I played it, it was interesting, but I felt a bit disconnected from it, and it was a tough thing to mail deliverance too. That is probably it. Yes, Max in the Twitch chat. Yes, it's probably that music, but for Death Stranding, when I originally played it, when it came out in 2019, it was a fun game. It was interesting, but I felt a bit disconnected. You know, it just didn't land with me. But playing it, I was like, this is actually a really interesting. This is an interesting game, interesting topic. It could have been a bit that I just wasn't. It wasn't that right time. You know, when a game really gels with you, sometimes it's not that time you play it; it's the next time. And then when it came out on Xbox, because I hadn't played it since 2019 when it came out, and it was like, what was it, October, November of 2024, last year, I felt it was kind of time to, like, hey, it's cheap. I can get it on the Xbox, grab some more achievements, and keep chasing H.Y.C.Y.BH, trying to beat him for achievement score in a month. So I jumped into it, and I'd forgotten so much about the game that going in with fresh eyes was, I think, the best way to jump into that game. And I will say now, I was very much wrong on Death Stranding in terms of the concept and what the game really gelled in on, which is, everybody talked about the overcomplicated story, the elements, the Kojima-ness of it. If you strip all of that away, if you strip away the Kojima, what you have there is possibly one of the most unique and interesting aspects of in-world gameplay. A game that demands that you really think about what it is you're playing and to be involved in every moment of it. OMG Turtles in the YouTube chat. Heard Dr. Penis is a great doctor. He doesn't look much, doesn't look like much, but comes quickly and will even give you a taxi fare when he's finished. Okay. Cheeky bugger you are. But for everything for the state of play, I'm really interested in seeing some of the one thing that Sony does, I think, fantastically well is a lot of people refer to it as money hats. I don't think of it as a money hat. I think of it as investment. They find great games. Think about it like Stellar Blade, and people can argue the toss on it, but when you look at Black Myth Wukong, everybody was really interested in it. And when you look at Black Myth Wukong, and that Sony looked at it and went, we want to get this to the next level. We want to make it be performant. We want it to be as best as it can be. If we're going to invest in it, you know, that's where you can kind of come in and go, well, it's better to focus on that platform and deliver a really good product for one group, and then be able to pivot and move into another group and be able to deliver them a damn good product as well. It's never about them making sure that everybody gets it at the same day. That's a great point. That's a great way to operate. But let's be honest, when it comes to development, it is a tough game out there. It is very tough. Livid Divid in the YouTube super chat saying Sony are decent to work with. I I only know a few people who work with Sony directly. A gentleman I met many years ago worked for Sony ICE and ICE, the ICE team, and he said that Sony were one of the best groups that he'd worked with, engineering talent and everything else. He was part of that team. A lot of people refer to them as kind of the specialist developers in Sony, where their development team works in optimizing and developing the tool sets for Sony for really to the metal programming talent. And they are located in, I believe it's Santa Monica, but they're actually embedded inside of Naughty Dog Studios. He had said that Sony were fantastic to develop with. Max Horn in the Twitch chat, I think, in reference to Death Stranding, I think that's why I didn't get into it much. I went into it like I was going into another, like, an open world looter shooter. That, I think, Max, is where I went wrong with Death Stranding. I fell into the same trap. I was thinking, this is just going to be like Metal Gear Solid 5, The Phantom Pain. Like, I'm just big open worlds. Let's go fuck some people up. But when you take that away and approach it more as, approach it in the sense of your own real job, like everybody's had that mundane job, and you work at it. You just do the simple thing. It when you approach it in that way, where it's just getting through the day, just finish delivering this package and then, you know, go home, or like try to just work through things. I think when you approach it that way, you have a better. I think people refer to it as the ludonarrative dissonance. Like, you have a closer connection to Sam Porter Bridges in that moment of you just being like, I just want to be left the fuck alone. Why can't people leave me alone? I've just got a job to do. I just want to do my job. And when those things combine, that's where you find that sweet spot for the game. In the YouTube chat, we've also got OMG Turtles. There never seems to be any problems. Everybody seems to have a horror story working with Xbox. Always at an admin level, though. Yes, that is one thing that I think has to always be said about especially larger companies, and definitely with Xbox. I've heard, this is anecdotal through people who have put games onto Xbox, that it has been tough, especially during the transition period from Xbox OG to the 360. It was fucking rough at some point, because they were coming in so hot with new hardware that a lot of people were like, oh, tell us about this Xbox Live Arcade thing that you're thinking of. And there was so little information out there that it was tough. In fact, I was going to tell a story about a smaller developer who released onto the Xbox Live Arcade, but I realized that is a story outside of school that technically I can't tell. So I will just leave it be. I will reach out to somebody and see if I could. Okay. Well, hold on. Let me send a message here, because I know that he would respond, and I know that he would be able to give me the okay to to say something. Okay. I have sent off a message to somebody who could give me a thumbs up on it. I've been given, okay, I've been given a thumbs up, but I've been told I can't say who it was, but I can say what the. No, my source's name isn't Jesse. A lot of my sources and everything else that I know through developers and people that I know and have worked beside and know personally is completely outside of everything in today's current video gaming stuff. Like the only people I know that anybody would kind of know. Uh, if we guess it right, you have to tell us, Max, in the Twitch chat. No, you may know, but you can't say the name of the developer. I know that you would know because you were there. But okay, good. That guy's terrible. Hey, it's, for everything, if people have issues with others, no problem. That's everybody's issue. But I am not going to be here to sling shit on everybody. I think everyone is cool. Jesse at Xbox Era is nice enough guy. Same with everybody out there. We, you know, this is a no mudslinging space. Everybody is cool. I like everybody, and I get along with everybody. Oh, and Max Horn in the Twitch chat may now know who I'm talking about. Okay, so Max, you can't say shit, but oh, sorry, Dr. Penis in the YouTube chat just before. In the indie scene, they're strongly disliked. Devolver won't be putting their stuff on Game Pass again. That's unfortunate to hear, especially because Devolver is one of those publishers where I think they can be very hit driven and they have a great eye. It is having a great eye, like even for like it's a tough thing to say. I would hope it doesn't fall into it, but with Annapurna, like it is a fantastic example. Annapurna had a great track record. They've picked fantastic games. They've developed and pushed. Some games have hit, some games haven't. Like you have games like 12 Minutes where a simple concept and well executed with great talent behind it just doesn't hit in the way that people expect. And it doesn't tank the brand, but it doesn't exactly give them a good next point to be able to kind of build off of that that kind of cachet. If something doesn't hit, you always find that there's a little less of the kind of flow on of people remembering what was great that you did. It always comes back to, oh, but I played that thing and it wasn't great. Like, you know, for a lot of stuff, with anything that Sony announced after Concord, I think it's pretty easy to say that, or pretty simple to say that when Sony announced anything after Concord, any of the news or elements about that had some people go, oh, yeah, but Concord. That's entirely unfair on a large publishing group, that your performance or how people are excited about a product isn't about the product that you're releasing, it's about the product you last released. Like, you always want to do better. So if something isn't great, you're wanting to do better, but you're judged by what you last released. But that last thing you released, you ended up refunding everybody. You didn't take anybody's money for it. You really locked in. OMG Turtles in the YouTube chat. They'll overcompensate with Marathon. I bet Bungie's in overdrive right now. I would not be surprised. Actually, that's possibly one thing I think could or would be shown tomorrow at the State of Play. Actually, I hope it is. But I hope this is a selfish thing. I will easily say that this is a very selfish desire that I have, which is do love Bungie's art direction for Marathon. That teaser trailer, the announcement trailer, that trailer, Qualified Wombats, my partner, saw that at I think that was the showcase that they showed that. And I got her to watch it, and she was like, "Oh my God, like this art style, this trailer, everything, this is actually interesting. This is exciting." But her excitement was completely killed when she asked me what the style of game was, and I said, "Oh, it's an extraction shooter." And that immediately her attention was, okay, don't care, because she does not like to play competitive PvP games, even if it is, um, even if it is just like PvPvE. Oh, Michigan Bryn, welcome back in the Twitch chat. Time for some more Wolverine tomorrow. Ooh, what is this? What are you up to, Bryn? You're not running a PC version of Wolverine, are you? Or are you you onto some playing through like all of the Marvel Classic games? Because yeah, my hair isn't Wolverine-y. um, I will say yes. Actually, I think it was late last week, early this week. Mishkin in the Twitch chat and I were talking about Bungie. Oh, actually, yes. Sorry, Mishkin in the Twitch chat has brought up Insomniac has to show something tomorrow. That is a good point. While the hack in I think it was late 2023, if memory serves, you know, I believe I know who Dr. Penis is. So if you, I figure it's you. If I'm right, the Insomniac hack was late 2023, and that was like the initial kind of layout was that or maybe a random Sunset Overdrive announcement. Okay, I will admit, if Sunset Overdrive gets announced tomorrow for the PlayStation platform, then fucking brilliant. It's sad that it took Ted Price leaving Insomniac for Sunset Overdrive to get released, but I would imagine that would actually be something he would be very proud of, because I think ever since like when actually I think it was in 2019, 2018, somewhere around there, Microsoft gave up their publishing rights. Like, if they published the game on more platforms, as the publisher, they could then hold their rights to the game being released on other platforms and then continue to hold publishing rights. Instead, they released their publishing rights and handed it back to Insomniac, so that when Insomniac then closed the acquisition deal with Sony, they didn't just own the Sunset Overdrive IP, they also owned the publishing rights to the game. They owned the IP and the publishing all in one. And, okay. Mishkin in the Twitch chat, top 3 Insomniac predictions: Spider-Man, something small like Miles 2, 2 Wolverine, and 3 Sunset Overdrive. See, I actually think one of those could possibly be OMG Total. Like, anybody, if you know, I think from the Insomniac League, like I refuse to go and pull stuff up. Like, that is in the security realm. You don't air people's dirty laundry, even if everybody's seen the dirty laundry. You don't show that stuff openly on streams and everything else, because I think it's kind of like rubbing somebody's nose in a mistake that they made, and that's not really fair against them. It's the same as like the whole FTC hack stuff. Everybody told me about the kind of stuff posted. I don't like to do that because it's very hypocritical to work in the security industry and be out there protecting people's yeah, protecting people's data and elements and helping their businesses secure themselves, and then to revel in a failure of that. Um, uh, Michigan in the Twitch chat, I'd also love to see some more Intergalactic the Heretic Prophet. I still think we are probably a little bit of time away from seeing that. I I hope that by next year we've got, you know, that gameplay trailer. The like the classic Sony thing of you show the game and then hopefully without too much time passing, much like the way they showed off God of War 2018 the first time, open it up and then show the fucking game playing. I'd hope the next time we see Intergalactic, it's gameplay. Michigan also bringing up the very good point. Ubisoft employees should never ride on trains, right? Yeah, that was tough. I think I actually had a chat with somebody who worked in one of the Ubisoft studios, not somebody who worked at Ubisoft Montreal, but yeah, they talked about like that is a tough thing because everybody's under pressure. They're trying to get all of this work done, and you're working on that, and you can never be certain about who's around you and what they're going to be talking about, what they're, you know, what they're interested in. They could be very interested in what you're dealing with, and yeah, like a lot of people wouldn't have considered at that point that somebody would, you know, take a sneaky phone shot and grab the screen and be able to go, oh, Rise of the Tomb Raider, before it's even announced. OMG Turtle saying they'll overcompensate with Marathon. Yep, a lot of that wasn't interesting anyway. Okay, for the Insomniac leak. Okay. Or possibly even the Xbox leak. I know a lot of people were kind of like, oh my God, here's the roadmap. There was like those photos that people were putting up of like a circular Xbox Series console. It was meant to be that there was that and a black console, which I think ultimately came out. The idea of a discless console, and that they had a particular roadmap. It was like an NVIDIA leak that caused all that news, right? Yes, yes, Bryn. There was also the NVIDIA leak. It's actually surprising how much, I suppose, with COVID. One thing I will say on my end for the people that I know who work in security, especially online security, COVID was one of the quickest periods of time that so many of them had to teach people about data security and then implement data security across thousands. So normally you would set up, you know, your external access server. So people are needing stuff from work that's over here on its own server, and only the things that they need would get transferred over to this server, and then that server is the one that everybody's able to access. But you would never keep all of your data on this public access server. You only allow them to, they can pull through here, from here, what they need, just the little bits and pieces. So there is never enough to be able to compromise something across the board, because if you're doing build development for software or anything else, there's certain things that you need to compile, or that things that you're adjusting get sent to this external access server, and then once it's checked by somebody on site, then it gets pulled across to the main server and you do the build. Problem being is that because so many companies out there were like, oh my God, COVID, people staying at home, internet, so people started taking work computers home. That is one of your biggest issues there. And everybody at work now, I don't know. Here's a tough thing. Everybody at work taking their work PC home, if you're building a software package, so you're working in game dev or you're working in software development, you can, through the gigabit Ethernet or 10 gigabit Ethernet that you've got in your workplace, you can pull everything for a compile, a local compile, just to test something. You can pull all of that down to your PC very quickly, and then build off kind of like a bare bones structure, and then send it to your development kit and then test it there. Or for some programs like Unreal, you can just build a local compile to test something and send it to the dev kit so that you can try it on real hardware at that time. So it's actually working in a development pipeline. When people were bundling up their computers and taking them home, nobody ever thought to stop and look at all of those PCs and go, hey, maybe we should image these drives first and put these images onto the access server and then wipe them. And before we allow them to pull this data and like reset up their PC, we check it to make sure that there's no internal data or no access keys, no ways to be able to access our public facing service, or, you know, our online access server without proper authorization. A lot of the hacks and bits and pieces and everything came from people having authorization and keys and everything else. Oh yes, from Mishkin in the Twitch chat, so many passwords were vulnerable being left in public buckets. That is one of the key things. Everybody with all of these PCs and all of these things then going home, it created vulnerabilities. And unfortunately, COVID was one of the greatest and easiest times for a lot of those vulnerabilities. And that sucks because I'll be honest, like, yeah, for my work, I heard from a lot of people who were going, oh, Jesus Christ, like, we've, like, somebody's accessed this. There were many things that a lot of people don't know about that happened out there that were squashed very quickly, or entire businesses were basically kicked off the internet for 24 hours while people in the background were, I think in the best way to put it was basically they were pouring acid over the servers because they're like, oh God, if we had to reset every password, every structure, everything that's been made vulnerable here, or that we found is vulnerable, it would take us 3 weeks to do. Instead, it's easy to nuke this fucking server, and then through these specific email addresses, we can then send people access keys to be able to come into a new structure. But away from that, so getting back, like the Insomniac leak, I remember people talking about like this roadmap of there was meant to be a Venom game and there was meant to be the online Spider-Man game. I think Special Nick said that there was a there was the multiplayer Marvel title that was being developed by Insomniac, or he implied Insomniac. Oh, a lot of crypto mining attacks on the back of all of this. Yes, that is actually quite interesting. There were a few companies that I know that actually got hit with the crypto mining lockdowns on systems, even smaller businesses around Australia. We knew of one, actually somebody that we work with, that we do a lot of subcontracted work with. They got hit for 1 Bitcoin that locked their server and everything else. The insurance company, you would think the insurance company, with all of their data protection that they had and all of these requirements for such a large business, well, small business, they had all of this data. They could just start from scratch, but the cost of redoing everything from scratch during COVID with no PC hardware, no server hardware to be able to pull all of this out and start from scratch all over again, the IT time, the specialist time to be able to go back and rewrite all of the software that was being used, it was cheaper to pay the $35,000 Australian for a Bitcoin to unlock and then fix the server after being unlocked than it was to try and get your hands on the hardware and rebuild everything from scratch from their own data backups. That's how insurance companies looked at it all. So when thinking about like, actually, I'll ask more openly. So Mishkin said what he is thinking. Like, there's hopefully Wolverine, maybe Sunset Overdrive, Spider-Man, something like Miles Morales, Wolverine. He also brought up Media Molecule. What are they up to? Dreams was a long time ago. That's also something I'd be interested in knowing, because Media Molecule have always been, I suppose in a sense, they're a bit like Playdead, who did Limbo and it was Limbo and Inside. They have a style of game they like to make. And yeah, Little Big Planet being one of their really big first successful games, and also Tearaway. I hope, or I wonder what Media Molecule are up to. I bet from OMG Turtles, I bet they'll be bringing Little Big Planet back. They'll be doing something safe next. That's actually where I'm wondering what anybody who has thoughts, like, please shout them out, because I wonder if, like, live service aside, I think live service is part of Sony's future, and it needs to be. Like, let's be honest, you kind of need to play in that realm. Helldivers is doing a fantastic job at it right now, but it's about building those successes by committing to a product, and they've at least committed to Helldivers when they've had a level of success. But it's still to be seen whether they're going to give that credit to someone else. Like, if Fair Games launches and it doesn't hit, like, okay, have it not hit like Concord did, but not have it hit with the success of a Helldivers 2, even if it's somewhere in there, I just want to see him commit and just go, no, let's trust the developers. They know what they're doing. They know what they've built. They know what they're going to have to change. Every developer out there who's been given an opportunity to build upon the game that they've released, those teams have continued to deliver success. No Man's Sky, ESO, like Sea of Thieves. Whenever you trust developers and go, you know what your intention is, like, it's intent and execution. Your intent is what you want to make. Your execution may not be perfect, but you know how to get there. You know what you've done, and you know how people have accepted it. You know then what you need to change in execution to hit your intent. Actually, a good point from OMG Turtles. Or Little Big Planet, but an Astrobot version. Sony just going all in on that IP. I think I would hope that the Asobi, I believe it's Asobi or Asobi Studios, the former Studio Japan team that did Astrobot, I'd hope that they're being let to just go nuts. Like, even if it's not more Astrobot, although they seem really kind of, I love the fact that they love their title. That's not something you see a lot. It's like, on to the next thing. OMG Turtles, it's harder to be trusting in studios though when the money isn't flowing, the leash gets shortened. That is an honestly really good point, because for everything, it's about the health of, it's not just one. Okay, it could be a bit reductive to say, I don't want to speak down upon any particular studio. Um, Mishkin in the Twitch chat saying, "Do we see Returnal 2?" I would like to see a Returnal 2, but I cannot remember whether that studio's actually done a sequel. I think they've always tended to roll into a next title, like they've always kind of rolled in. Trying to remember what is the name of that studio. Anybody at home, help. Returnal. Housemark. That's right. Okay, so Housemark, I believe. Yeah, Superstarter, because yeah, I don't think they have. Yeah, Jesus, they don't. They don't have any. They do not have any sequels, which is interesting though, because they've always tended to stay. Oh, they've got Super Stardust Ultra after doing Super Stardust Portable, and Super Stardust HD. But they had that particular style with their multi-directional shooters, like the Geometry Wars style of game, and I think they know that style of game. They've really honed in on it in a with a particular skill, which is about having the gameplay be just fantastic. It just dials perfectly. That I think is one of those great elements that it's like when Bungie releases a first-person shooter, you know the control's going to be great. When Housemark are working on something with kind of a shooting kind of gameplay format, you know it's going to have this really tight, almost bullet hell, but just that little degree outside, where it drives you less in the Dark Souls-ian, I suppose, format, but it brings you to this almost zen point, much like Fruit Ninja, like that zen of when you just get things right, and it's that little dopamine hit where you go, oh yes, I got it. But kind of on that previous point for what OMG Turtle said, I've gotten more messages back as well. Okay. Sorry. Hold on. I'll have to respond to that later. Somebody's actually hit me with a work question while I'm doing bits and pieces. Actually, that's the other thing. Okay. Before I forget, I have been given permission. I cannot say the name of the studio. So, going back. All right. Okay, so this is in reference to the horror stories of trying to work with Xbox, where Devolver are saying they won't be putting stuff on Game Pass again. Now, this is long before Game Pass, but it does have a relevance, and it comes more from miscommunications that occur between studios and teams that are outside of America trying to communicate with this is before ID at Xbox, and this is Xbox Live Arcade days. I can't say the period of time in which it was, but it's just Xbox 360 period. So this team was working on smaller games across a whole bunch of different platforms, and they had one particular one that they were working on inside just the XDA, or the XDA XNA network platform system, which was a kind of all-in-one development and coding system that Microsoft released for the Xbox 360 that was usable in the arcade system. It's also, for those who know the games, it's also what Transistor and Bastion and I think it was actually in the engine system for Hades in its first early access release. It was being used by the studio behind Hades. Jesus, I am blanking on a whole bunch of studio names. I'm normally a whole lot quicker. Um, Hades. Yeah, Bastion, Transistor, and Pyre were both released in this engine. Supergiant Games, that's it. Now, from memory, yeah, it was for Bastion. It was actually developed on the Microsoft XNA engine. There we go. Okay, so this studio was working on the XNA engine to make something a little bit different than the other smaller games that they were releasing on other platforms. Now, for this period of time, this is just after the start of what you would call for the Americans, it was the summer of arcade. For us in Australia, it was the winter of arcade because, hemispheres and the whole deal. This studio working on this stuff were really dialing it in, and they had a really great concept, and they were playtesting constantly. I think I played this game across probably a good period of like 6 months here and there, where a member of the team would reach out and just hit a whole bunch of us up and just be like, hey, we're playtesting today, if you want to swing by after 4 p.m. So any of us who were available or around, we'd head down there and play it. And it wouldn't be the devs are all standing around watching us. They'd just, like, one of the team would come down and just watch how we were playing the game, seeing the performance, ask us things like, how does it feel to jump? How does it feel to move? Like, all of those things. And then we would be able to play like multiplayer matches against one another, and that's where they would record the screen, like on a very early iPhone, I think it was, like record the screen and video us, not us playing, but just us playing on the screen. Now, they had really dialed it in, and they had this game on lock. It was fantastic. So they started they didn't give out public access. It was very much private access for the game. They had this game on lock, and they were like, yep, we are confident. We know what we've got. It's fantastic. They were keeping Microsoft in the loop. This is also their words to me. I wasn't in the room for these discussions. This is all one person or several people's versions of events. So they had lined this up and said to Microsoft, here's the game. We want to put it in for submission. They accept the game. They go, this is great. We've got an awesome window that we think it's going to work well in. So they're like, okay, cool. So it's going to be 3-4 months from now. The 3-4 months pass with no word what was happening from there. They had been told your game is going to be released on X date. So in other forms of media and everything else, they started talking about it and mentioning the game name and just going, oh, this is the thing, and we're going to do this. And they had little promo bits and pieces pulled together. And then it gets to within a month, and they're like, okay, are you guys going to start promoting on your end? And they're like, oh, no, we've had to delay it. We've had other titles come in that we now have to fit inside there. So they weren't informed that their game launch got pushed this additional time down the track. And they're sitting there going, well, we we kind of like we've planned development time that as soon as the game hits, we know that we're going to have people play it and they're going to go, oh, there's this issue or there's that issue. We would like to fix these problems. That time passes and the dev team basically has to go, all right, sorry guys, we've got another game launch to do. The next game launch that they had past that is, if I said the game, you would know the studio I'm talking about, and thereby it would kind of remove this level of obfuscation. So I can't say the game, but their next game that they released, they were working kind of overlapping these developments. So this working on Xbox 360 was then being overlapped with this next thing. And when that game hit, it hit hard. Like, it was, at that period of time, it was the #1 best-selling game on a platform. Oh, hey, Blue. We've got Blue, super mod for the Xbox 2 Discord in here. Hey, man. Thank you very much, and appreciate the follow. Thank you. OMG Turtles, yes, this is that do be me too, yes. OMG Turtles, always communication. There must be that big, that they must be efficient, but it always comes down to them not talking about what their plans are. Exactly. And there we go, there's the music. Thank you very much. And now there's the really crap version of that follow music. I'm gonna have to find it and fix it. I need to find it. It needs to be the it needs to be my friend screaming about aloe. So this game hit, and for the best way to say it is, when it released on the platforms it was available on, it became the #1 best-selling paid game on the platforms it launched on. Now, this is after this is 2010 and onwards. That's about the best that's context. So 2010 onwards, think about games that released that hit big. If you do work it out, don't put it in the chat, please. But that game hit, and then obviously with, let's be honest, it was millions, tens of millions of people starting to play. And a follow on Twitch as well. Thank you very much, Blue. I appreciate it. You don't need to watch me on both, though. I appreciate that, man. And thank you very much for all of your work on the Discord. It has actually been really cool to see. I am coming up with one hell of an introduction question, and I think the answers that people are going to pick are going to be an interesting little thing for the intro threads. So tens of millions of people start buying this game and loving it, and it changes this. Like, this studio has success to a level that many others dream of. And they basically had to, I think they increased their development studio size in terms of people working in the studio. It was originally about 10 to 12 people. And I think they hit 30 people inside about a couple of weeks after that, just to keep up with customer inquiries, questions, customer support, tech support, and also then dealing with the platforms that they had launched on, because those platforms are going, hey, you've put a product onto our store and we're making 30% on every purchase and microtransaction and thing and this and that. So it changed everything. So then obviously Xbox go, holy shit, these guys who have just released this thing and it's hit 10 million or 10 million plus and still going, they're currently it. We need to get their game, like we need to put their name and their game on Xbox Live Arcade. And at that point, then it was this massive quick effort. I, I don't believe they sent someone out, but there was at that time actually an interesting thing for the international listeners. Xbox actually did have, or Microsoft had a dedicated Xbox team here in Australia. If you know Ashley Jenkins, Jinx, who was on the No for Rooster Teeth and former Fragdoll, she was actually one of the community leads for Xbox here in Australia. It's the job that she came over here to do. And also, at Ashley Jenkins, one of the most lovely people I've ever met in terms of gaming, especially community management. I was an absolute nobody, and I met her at I think it was a 2009 event for Xbox, 2009, yeah, 2009, 2010. I believe it was the introduction of the Xbox Next experience when Twitter and Facebook and Netflix became part of the Xbox front end. She hosted that event in several capital cities around Australia and was basically being flown in and out and doing press and all this sort of stuff. At that event, she's the busiest she's ever been, and I kind of interrupted her when she was having just a quiet moment and said to her, like, you know, oh my God, it's a pleasure to meet you, because I remember watching her as a Fragdoll back in the days of like Ghost Recon 1. And she was incredibly gracious and answered all of my nerdy questions about that period of time, how she, how she built out from there, and like why Australia of all places was where she came to. Absolute class act. Absolute class act. And for forever and a day, I'll always have time for Ashley Jenkins. She's just one of those brilliant people. Like, they may say never meet your heroes. There are some people who are not heroes, but people you respect. Those people can help change the way you look at life and the way you interact with people. She is one of them. So, finishing out the story, Microsoft, as soon as they saw that this game was doing all of this work, they got their Australian Xbox team on top of everything. They worked out a clear-cut communication method between Australia and the US to be able to make sure that this game had all the support it needed, that it got a proper window, that they got proper marketing. I think... No, actually, that's the one thing I can't... Yeah, that's the one thing I can't say about it. I'm glad I checked. I appreciate that, my friend. Okay. It's Blue. I really appreciate it. Sorry, I've just seen, as I've checked a Discord message to make sure that I was saying what I was allowed to say and not saying what I wasn't allowed to say. Blue has posted in some of the Discords promoting the stream. Thank you. I haven't wanted to do that in any of the public channels because I feel it's not right to promote your own shit in somebody else's location, and like everybody there is really chill. I'd hate to drag people and be like, hey, come and look at me, be the performing monkey. But that's really nice. Thank you. I really do appreciate that. So with all of that, that studio had this massive success of, like, they wanted this game to be something that could continue on and build a platform so that they could then release it onto other platforms. They started with Microsoft because there was good support. There was good, like the XNA framework was free in a sense. Even if you developed for it and you then wanted to release on PC and everything else, the fees for bringing it across and further development, even your own custom development off the XNA framework, was free. They didn't charge you licensing fees, I think, except if it went past a certain threshold, and even then it was very small. Because as I mentioned, Supergiant Games with Bastion and Pyre and Transistor, when those games went to other platforms, they didn't ask or pull others into the, they didn't pull rank on them and go, oh, no, you can't release it on PlayStation or Switch or anything else. I went, no. It's your engine. You've done all of the work. And it was about enabling them, which also, but when it came down to it, all of the time and effort that went into this game was only then really pushed when they had something else hit that kind of greased the wheels and got everybody really excited and got the support behind them. It shouldn't have to be that there needs to be there needs to be another product out there for Microsoft to stand up and support something. That is one of the biggest problems I've seen across a larger scale of time, but that is also because I'm old and I've watched and know and talk with friends who've worked across every generation of Xbox from the original to now. And it's the one area where, yeah, it doesn't have, it has improved. I'm not gonna just constantly slag on them and go, they've been terrible since the Xbox 360 era. I know some people who would probably say that, but I will give them credit that in my history, in my past, OMG Totals in the YouTube chat, do you think it's a philosophical thing with Xbox or just that they lack the awareness? That's actually where I was going to go next. I think it's that they lacked the awareness, or they didn't have somebody who was willing to stand and deliver for that particular effort inside of Microsoft. Okay, so going back in my years when there was more hair and less balding, when my hair was a lot longer, in 2014, I was doing a podcast and doing YouTube videos and Let's Plays and all of that sort of stuff for my own channel, which is now very much well defunct, but someday I might get, actually DJ Fart Blaster was one of the one of the people who's occasionally in chat. He was one of the guys alongside me, and then two other friends of mine. The three of them were Chris's. So I had Chris, and Chris, or Corthel, Griff, and Beeves. And then there's me, and I'm not a Chris. But in 2014, in a very lucky sense, yes, Max Horn in the Twitch chat say, I'm sorry, DJ Fart Blaster. Yes, that is his name. I think, Max, you had actually met him, a friend of mine called Beeves, or Mr. Beeves, it was always referred to. But here's the funny thing. He had tried changing his name in the, it's actually due to the Xbox gamer tag system. DJ Fart, very quickly, he had, his previous gamer tag was listed under a new kind of, when they kind of change the rules and go, okay, these are the words we allow, these are the words we don't. His gamer tag was considered on a borderline. So they said, hey, look, it's just this little bit too close to something. So we're going to give you a free rename. So you don't have to pay for it, but we would like you to change your gamer tag. Your history will stay, but we'd just like you to change your gamer tag. And he went, okay, no problem. So it had a whole bunch of recommendations. and one of them was DJ Fart Blaster, to which he went, fuck yes, and picked that. Uh, it Now, here's the thing. His previous name that they were asking him to change was Captain Beeves. Now, Beeves being short for Beaver, and Beaver being short for, you know, implying going down on a hairy girl. That's why they wanted him to change it. But their suggestion is DJ Fart Blaster. However, he then went to try and put DJ Fart Blaster as his Switch tag, as it were, and Nintendo refused to allow Fart Blaster. So then he changed it to DJ Heart Blaster on Nintendo. So still continuing evidence that Nintendo just don't have fun in general. Yeah, Nintendo were always like, lol, no. So back in 2014, in one of the most brilliant things, and again, another person who I will always have time for, and if you ever meet him, tell him Scarecrow sent you, and he'll be like, oh, Jesus Christ, no. There is a man who is very much associated with Reed Pop and a lot of the Reed Pop events. He now currently is the content director, and I think also the director of the events for DreamHack, Guy Yug Blomberg. He and I worked, he's one of the owners of Mana Bar, and he was one of the owners of Australian Gamer. He was one of the guys who did Game Damage, the TV pilot that was put up on YouTube in around 2010. He came up with the concept for Mana Bar, and I didn't have any money, but he told me about an idea of a gaming bar that had cocktails and video games to play, and I was like, that sounds like a fucking great idea. Yes, Bryn Mishkin in the Twitch chat, Yug is just Australian video games Hall of Famer. Yes, Matt and Yug are basically Australia's Tycho and Gabe. They were the Australian Penny Arcade, and Yug in general has been kind of the key of so much of Australia's video gaming landscape and texture, because when Pokemon Go came out, he was the guy who was living in Sydney who, in a matter of one weekend, managed to create posters, get television press events, and organize, I think it ended up being over 2,000 people going out into the Sydney parks and walking around catching Pokemon live. And it was enough that Channel 7, Channel 9, Channel 10, ABC, and SBS, all the major terrestrial channels here in Australia, were interviewing him as the leader of this big event, as if he was from Nintendo and planned all of this. And he was having to explain, no, I just think that video games are great and that this is a game that everybody can play together and we're all walking around having fun. That is Yug, and when he told me about Mana Bar, I didn't have any money. I had no buy-in for it, but I did have the skills of being able to work with my hands and be a sheet metal worker. So I told him that I would help build anything that he needed. Actually, in a funny turn of events, I built the Mana Bar sign that was above the door, and when the bar shut down, I actually got my hands, thanks very much to Morrigan. Sorry, I was going to say a dead name, but Morrigan, as they're known today. They reached out to me when the bar closed and asked if I wanted the sign, and I actually have it here at home. It will hopefully at some point be up here. I am going to install it in here when all of this is kind of finalized. I'm still doing some, working out some ideas. Mishkin, Gabe is actually streaming on YouTube. He streams daily on YouTube, doing Das Vidanya. I'm quickly gonna I'll find it for you and post it. Yeah, he's been streaming. Because I know I've got him here. Sorry, I'm trying to find it while keeping all of this running in my head. He streams on YouTube. I think it's, if not every day, then it's every couple of days. It's just a tough thing, considering your subscriptions online, especially on YouTube. It just falls apart. And there's also Keep It Classy. Oh God, here's the weirdest thing. For for anybody else, Marnabar and everybody in Brisbane basically came to the bar because it was a central location for Brisbane, which is Fortitude Valley, and nearly everybody associated with the bar, myself, Yug and Matt, had so many people and so many connections. Then the people like Gabe, who worked on the door as the security guard, and then Meg, who also worked on the front door as security, then also became a bartender. Morrigan, as they're now known, working behind the bar. There was Shay, who was the cocktail designer. There was Praz, who was a producer and director, I believe, creative director at Sega Creative Assembly, even before it became Sega Creative Assembly. And then there was Yog, who was Praz is in the States now. Here's the interesting thing, Max. Praz is the vice president of digital for Exploding Kittens Incorporated. Think of Exploding Kittens and how big they are as a company, as a card company. Exploding Kittens. He's the vice president of Exploding Kittens. Yes, he is. Okay, for anybody out there who may not know, you may be familiar with H.Y.C.Y.BH Croshaw, Zero Punctuation. Don't know if everybody's aware of him. So I've known him since 2008. End of 2008 we met at an Australian Gamer event. Here's the interesting thing. He was at my wedding. In fact, a lot of the people associated with Martabar were at my wedding or my reception, because we were all a large group of people. When Wombats and I announced our engagement to a whole bunch of our friends, he came up, and you don't get an invite. You would have had to have gone back in time about a year to know me. Don't worry, Max. If we had met before then, you would have been there. We would have been singing at the reception. But out of all of our friends, all of these people coming up and congratulating us on announcing our engagement and everything. And H.Y.C.Y.BH walks up and just goes, "So you're getting married?" And we're like, "Yeah." And he just goes, "Why?" And in a moment like that, Wombats is one of the quickest, like, one of the amazing reasons I love her is that she is a fantastic and very sharp and very quick response. Yes, H.Y.C.Y.BH from Zero Punctuation OMG Turtles. That's who I'm referring to. So yeah, he just goes, "Why?" And we're like, well, we're kind of fond of one another and everything like that. And he's like, "Oh God, you wouldn't ever get me married or anything like that." So yeah, Just Cause 2. Um, so now let's fast forward to 2025, is it? 2024. As some people may know, Yahtzee left the Escapist at the towards the end of 2023, I think it was, when Nick Calandra was basically fired, moved on from the Escapist, and staff left and just went, if he's not here, he's worked with us, we like him. They left and started Second Wind, and they seem to be going quite well. They're doing really well. The the interesting aspect to it is that during one of the live streams, I actually kind of threw a super chat into the live stream, not expecting Yahtzee to remember, because here's a weird thing. I know his name is Ben, but for so many people in this video gaming scene that I was in and still am part of, a lot of people went by gamer tags or forum handles. So I've always been known as Crow or Scarecrow because that was my name for so long. Same as he was Yahtzee. And when he asked me why Scarecrow, and I just went, well, because nobody really refers to me by my normal name, only my family does, or Wombats does, and that's honestly how I prefer it. Somebody referring to me by my tag, or like even today on here, if somebody goes Crow or Scarecrow or Scarcely or anything like that, that's what gets my attention, because it means that I have a set association. I know how I associate with this person, and it's always generally friendly. If somebody comes in and uses your birth name against you, you're like, oh shit, I'm in trouble. Like you start getting prepared to have stuff thrown at you. So for years, I will bring it down for the next stream. In the time that I've known Yahtzee, we've always referred to each other by, he's Yahtzee, I'm Crow. So, or Crow or Scarecrow. So he's doing a live stream. He's playing games, I think, with Marty Sleever. Marty Sleever, I think is how you pronounce his name. They're doing a stream. I was just like, well, screw it. I'm supporting him on Patreon. Yeah. Marty Sleever. He was former IGN. He went across to the Escapist and then left. And then from IGN, when he left there, he went to the Escapist, and then he jumped off board with the Escapist. Oh, okay. We've got some Marty Sleever fans here. OMG Turtles. I like Marty. It was sad when he disappeared from IGN. Yeah, still to this day, a lot of people have claimed things about what happens there, and color me ignorant. I don't know what happened. But they were doing this stream, and until I changed my tag and handle on YouTube, any of the yes, Marty is on Twitch under McBiggity. That's it. I don't mind his streams. He does some interesting little breakdowns, especially on games that he's been playing through years later, which is something I was originally going to do tonight. And I was originally going to do, and here's the thing, my controller switched off, and I haven't gone back to it. I was actually going to be jumping into this, but we've just ended up chatting. So I just put in a super chat or one of those donations, and it just had my name listed as Scarecrow, just Scarecrow 121, same as my gamer tag for Xbox. And I just left my message in there being like, hey, Yarts, like that's generally how Wombats and I would refer to him as Yarts, because we, strange turn of events, we also have a cat named Yahtzee that was named after Yahtzee before we met Yahtzee, and he's a fluffy white rag doll that Yahtzee actually met. That's another story for another time. We're just we're gonna fall off everything. This is a train of thought derailing. Like it's like Bubby Kai is here, because this motherfucker's just going off the mountain, and it's just wiping out everything underneath it. You know, small towns are crushed by a derailed train. However, the Max Horn, the puppy on your Blue Sky profile, what is their name? Their name is Coda. Coda, the German Shepherd. That was the day we got him. He is now 15 months old, 16 months old. And in that photo, he is about maybe 5-6 kilos. He is now 40. He is a 40-kilo big fucking wolf. Actually, yeah, I think he does not have much attitude. He is just attitude. He just pushes his way everywhere. That is it. He is one big unit. Actually, Wombats has been sick the last couple of days. And she's been at home recovering today, which is why I was so busy at work. Because I was down down Wombats. She wasn't there to be able to help. You know, she's sick. You can't do anything about that. You make sure people recover, and you just get by. But she was messaging me throughout the day that Coda was basically like chin on her knee, just beside her the entire day. He was just wanting to make sure that she was okay. She raises the sookiest dogs possible, whereas I just raise the one border collie who's the loudest. So that kind of says a lot about me. So I've put in this super chat to the stream, and my name is just listed there as the Scarecrow121, my former YouTube handle, and it just says, "Hey Yarts, you know, amazed to see the work you're doing. Fantastic to see you now behind something that you own. Much love from Brisbane." That was it. That was the message. Now, I haven't identified and gone, "Hey, it's your mate, you know, it's your mate Crow from here." I just went, "Much love from Brisbane," because a whole bunch of people during that stream were like, "Hey, Yahtzee, you know, love you from, best wishes from Wales, best wishes from Wisconsin, best wishes from," like, people would just, he'd ask the question, like, people in the chat who are putting messages in and everything, "Let us know where you're from." And I just put Brisbane, and it is very weird to have, like, I had this on my side screen while I was doing something at work. So I've just put in the message and basically forgotten about it. I can just hear it, and the screen's off to the side. And Marty's read out the message, been like, "Oh yeah, there's this one here from the Scarecrow121, blah blah blah. All the best from Brisbane," and he's just stopped playing, and it's got his little camera, and he's just like, "Is that my friend Scarecrow from Brisbane?" And just with this smug little voice, and be like, "Yeah, that would be Scarecrow," because and then proceeded to be like, he has a cat named after me, and started being like, "That has to be him, right?" So I ended up putting in more chats and everything, and just reached out. The weird thing being is I'd watched his videos, but I hadn't heard much about what was going on. The last I'd heard was, I think, in 2017. I think Gabe, now I wish I had Gabe on speed dial. I'd just ask him. Gabe actually flew over, I think, for his wedding, he got married to his girlfriend, Kess. Well, now wife, Kess, I think. Now, here's the weird thing. Wombats and I met Kess before H.Y.C.Y.B.H did, because Kess had gone to Marnabar. She had come from America to Australia and was like, oh, hey, cool, video gaming bar, blah, 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 blah. Came into the bar, and it was one of those quiet nights where there's only just a few people, and Wombats and I, we headed down there quite often, nearly like mostly every night. I think Max would be able to attest to this. There were not many nights that you could go to Marnabar and not see either Beck or myself there, or Wombats and myself there. It's very true. Yes, it's kind of depressing in a sense and how much I was there, but good times all around. So when new people came to the bar, it was always something that I'd ask people and just be like, hey, how'd you hear about the place? Like, same as anybody interacting in a Discord. Engage with new people, ask them what their interest is, what's their favorite game, or what brought them there. Was it just curiosity? And I remember meeting Kess a few nights prior and having a chat with her. And she's like, oh, yeah, checking this out. Oh, okay, cool. Well, lovely to see you in Brisbane. If there's ever anything that throws you about the place, like public information is on this street down here, this will take you up to the Sunshine Coast. This will take you to the Gold Coast. Enjoy your time in Brisbane. And then I think it was, a little bit later, we had gone down there and met H.Y.C.Y.B.H, and we were there when H.Y.C.Y.B.H met Kess, I think. Or that we were chatting with him and then Kess arrived and they had met before. It's this really weird thing of realizing and kind of backtracking and going, holy shit, we were there when you met your now wife. So I knew that he was married. I didn't know that he now has kids, because here's the thing. The other side to the story of H.Y.C.Y.B.H asking us why you would get married. The other side to this is there is a photo. I will hunt these things down and bring them to the next stream. There is a photo just after Wombats and I got married at the register's office, and H.Y.C.Y.B.H was there, Yug and Matt were there, family was there. It was really lovely. But there's a photo just after I'd basically gone, okay, everybody, photos have been taken, let's go get pissed. And we basically took everybody out to the local pub and grabbed a pub lunch and shouted everybody drinks. There's a photo of me and H.Y.C.Y.B.H walking ahead of everyone else, because I was kind of like, oh my God, like the wedding part of this is done. And H.Y.C.Y.B.H kind of caught up with me, and it was like, hey, thanks for having me here and everything. It's like, no, dude, you're a friend. Like, you have friends at your wedding. Like that's a key thing. And he'd actually said, like, what is your hope? Like, I know that you and Wombats don't want kids, so why would you get married if you're not going to go with kids or anything else? And I just went, well, makes it easy for the paperwork, but at the same time, like, kids aren't the defining thing of getting married. You get married to the person you really care about. If you're going to have kids, whether you want them or not, like, that's going to be something you discover down the line. And he'd asked me, and just in a really earnest moment, just like, do you think you'll ever want kids? And I was like, no, not really. I don't think so. And he was of the same opinion. He was like, yeah, I don't know. I don't think kids are something for me. And then fast forward to reaching out to him and just being like, holy shit, like, you've got two of them. What the hell happens, man? but um, but there's always all of these really associated things. So Max, yes. Um, Praz, vice president of Exploding Kittens, and Yahtzee, happily married man with 2 kids. To my knowledge, I don't know what their names are or anything else like that because what am I going to do with that information? I don't really mind. Like, as long as they're happy and healthy, that's kind of the important thing. Um, okay. So in this massive roundabout, I've just gone through a whole history of bits and pieces. Now to get back to the original point, train back on rails. In 2014, due to Yug being the content director and the director of PAX Australia, because the podcast and video series and everything that I was doing had done enough to be considered media by Penny Arcade Australia's media team, we were given media access to Penny Arcade Australia Expo 2014. So Chris 1, Chris 2, and myself flew down to Melbourne. So Korth, Griff, and myself went down to Melbourne. I got to meet and have an interview that was never unfortunately given clearance for release with Chris Roberts of Star Citizen fame. One of my biggest regrets is that in talking with him, I brought up obviously like the history of Wing Commander and everything else, his work with Digital Anvil and other bits and pieces. However, I'd asked him about how he chooses to navigate the waters of being held accountable to backers and Kickstarters as opposed to developers and publishers in today's world. In that I said, there is, if you, like in your past, when products haven't delivered a return or anything else, it means that you then don't have a publisher that you can work with in the future. And that can then be potentially a hassle for trying to publish another game or develop another game in the future. But if you screw over a bunch of Kickstarters or backers and you don't deliver a product, he, because I'd brought up the point of you can still screw people over, but the people who are going to be screwed over are people who trusted you and believed you and put their money, very little amounts of it, into you because they trust you and what you've done in the past. But let's be honest, you have no accountability to them. They have no way to be able to pursue you for something that you don't deliver. All you have to do is deliver an EXE. And if it can't run on their computer, then it doesn't matter. You delivered an EXE. You've held up your part of the, you've held up your part of the bargain. Max Horn in the Twitch chat. I'm not going to lie. Of all the times I'd come across Yahtzee, he'd been very sarcastic and almost cold until I walked in one night and said my hellos to everybody and sat down with him and a few other people, and he was being completely down to earth, and it completely changed my view of him. Yes, that is the one thing. While people can be very dismissive of Yahtzee and say that he's a reviewer, he doesn't have any talent, he's not a real reviewer, he doesn't score games and everything else, I will defend that man to my dying breath because, one, he is a really genuine, honest, and really incredibly smart person. And also a very key thing being is that people have an assumption about that he is like every other reviewer out there, that he has Gamergate criticisms put at him and attention put on him. Here's the one thing though. I work hard. I work hard, and I know anybody in this chat, everybody works hard. The hardest working person I have ever met in my life, or who I think I will ever know in my life, is Ben Yahtzee Croshaw. I feel bad in that I haven't spoken to him in quite a few years. From OMG Turtles. I think it's because he goes against the grain that he has some sort of motive, but I think he just doesn't like modern AAA games. True, he doesn't like modern AAA games. However, I'll get to that on something here. I'll come back to that, but it is a good point. I'll come to that. Since we haven't really chatted in some time, you know what? We're all friends here, and I don't imagine that somebody's going to clip this and send it to Yahtzee and be like, hey, this person spoke really kindly of you and everything. I don't think that's going to happen, nor do I think that he would click on a link from somebody like tweeting at him, just being like, hey, this person from your past just spoke glowingly of you. Also, it doesn't give reason for anybody here to do it. I see that, Turtles. He starts putting cameras up. Already clipped and sent it now. Thanks, Max. What if we say Scarecrow from Brisbane? He still probably won't click on it. He'd be like, oh my God, he's trying to do another podcast again. Weird thing being, I got Yahtzee on a podcast when I wasn't expecting him. When I first, like, anybody who knows me, I did podcast twice in the past, a show called Overindulgence. And when I first did it, it was with a friend of mine, Hawkeye, and with Corthel and myself. And it is terrible to listen back to because I'm not a good host. I was basically going by the seat of my pants and just going, fuck it, I'm going to learn this shit on the fly. It is a lot of me going, In fact, someone listening to the show actually created just a supercut of all of the funny moments that Corthel said, all of the funny moments that Hawkeye said, and then for the moments for me, it was cutting out every one of my because that's all I did. I wasn't a great host. I still don't think I am. I'm trying, but I think you only try and learn by doing. So I've never been shy to just do things and accept criticism and critique and learn from it on the fly. So the weird thing being is that I was initially planning to have Yug on. This was when Mana Bar was about to open. This was, I think this was 2 weeks. 2 weeks before the opening of Mana Bar. They still didn't have their liquor license yet. They had applied for it 9 months earlier, and it was being held up going through the Fortitude Valley Chamber of Commerce. I'm sure Yug and Praz and everybody wouldn't mind me saying this. This was just stuff that they were dealing with. Yeah, they really do. Oh, g'day, Cheeseworks. G'day, man. Cheeseworks in the YouTube chat. Thank you very much for dropping by again. I'm telling stories about Yahtzee Croshaw. I'm a tad quiet. Oh no. I don't think I've ever been accused of being quiet in my life, so that's quite a quite a scary element. Yeah, I'm probably standing back from the mic a little bit because it has been a bit of a day, but I also feel that I'm speaking loud. I might just turn down my monitors a little bit. That might help. And there's another from Yug getting prepared and working on Mana Bar. So they gained access to the venue in October of 2009. The venue opened in, I believe it was March 24, 2010. because I got married 2 weeks after open, and I got married on April 9th. My relationship with Yahtzee is that he was at my wedding. I've known him since late 2008. We've we have spent many hours drinking and talking, and one of oh, Mishkin, got to take off to sleep. Good chatting all. Thanks for the stream. Thank you very much as well, Bryn. I appreciate you swinging by, and thank you for reminding me of all of the Sony games, especially from the devs. I hadn't considered Insomniac might have a few things ready for us tomorrow. That would be very cool. I do look forward to that. So if if there's anything Insomniac, I'll fire you a message. We'll have to see what we're thinking. So many Sony devs, definitely. Something has to happen. Definitely. Cheers, mate. You have a great night. Yeah, it is definitely a line from the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. He's just this guy, you know. So I'm doing this podcast, and I'm honestly just interviewing and talking with people that I know. I had Yug on episode 3, and we basically did a movies episode because Yug and I were fans of kind of classic films and bits and pieces like that. We loved cinema. So we were talking about favorite films. So everybody in this podcast so I think there was like 5 or 6 people on that episode, and we're all talking about like favorite movies of all time, and it was always the kind of bullshit you talk about with your friends, but then having just stories and elements that would kind of link off and branch off into different things. You know, the kind of classic podcasty thing of, you know, talk about the shit that matters to you and hope that it's interesting to other people. So it's gotten to 2 weeks before Mana Bar's opening. I have been since, I think, November, I think. In November, I was working 45-hour weeks, and 45-hour weeks at work, full time. Then when I'd finish work, I'd get home, have a shower, and then go down to where Mana Bar was and start sanding floors or trying to work out how to paint the floors to be able to resist hundreds of people walking on it. We never found an option. And I would do that for a couple of hours a night whenever possible, while still at the same time trying to be an attentive fiance to Wombat, who was organizing things for our wedding that was meant to happen 2 weeks after Mana Bar opened. So they just have a sign that says no walking. Unfortunately, no. It did not work that way. People just wanted to walk into the bar. Even with the capacity of 50 people, so many walk-ins. With all of that, we managed to get to the 2 weeks from there. They finally get the liquor licensing, and Yug, while working on the bar and trying to plan all of these things out, I managed to get him to agree, seeing as he's doing all of this promo stuff for Mana Bar, and he is appearing on every podcast he can. He's doing every interview he can. Doesn't matter, big, small, wherever it was. He was talking to everybody, promoting the bar and going, this is the bar that Yahtzee Croshaw of Zero Punctuation funded. He'll be there. And like really jazzing it up. So much that there was international coverage. Quite a bit of international coverage. I think there's even IGN articles about Mana Bar opening. So I've organized for Yug to drop by, and during this period of time, he's working and tearing around so much that I was like, hey, if you want to come on and just like chill for an hour and a half, I'm going to cook for you. I'm going to cook a fucking amazing curry. I'm going to feed you, and then we just sit down, do the podcast, like do an hour and a half or so and just like knock it out. then you go and chill out for the rest of the night and know that everything's done. We are squared. You don't owe me anything. I don't owe you anything. We've, you know, because I was like, having Yug on, that's a great friend. Talking about Mana Bar that we'd been working, that I was working on and helping him with, but not associated with. It was just a thing to be proud of. So Yug walks in and Yahtzee's with him. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. You're here as well, Yahtzee. Oh, awesome, man. Do you want some curry? And he was like, yeah, okay. I didn't realize we were getting fed. So served everybody up. So we're all eating. And I'm just like, okay, so are we going to do the podcast now? Or do you want to, or do you and Yahtzee need to go do Mana Bar stuff? And Yug was like, no, we're both here to do the episode. And I'm like, oh, fuck. Because go back in your mind and think about Yahtzee Croshaw and Zero Punctuation and look at the games that he's reviewing through the start of 2010. And you will realize that that is about what a lot of people would call peak Zero Punctuation. No, I can't say that. I know that he once told me how much he was making a month in like his share on revenues and bits and pieces like that, but that's not a right thing to say without his permission. But yeah, I was like, oh shit, because I knew that there were other people I knew, other people in video gaming who were trying to get Yahtzee on their podcast consistently. They were offering anything and everything, but he was like, nah, don't want to do it. And he basically came along with Yug to do this, not because Yug twisted his arm and went, hey, you owe Scarecrow, he's been working on our bar, like, let's go do this. Yug had basically went, oh, I've got to go do I'm going to go do a podcast with Scarecrow, basically doing like Mana Bar promo stuff, and we're going to talk movies and bits and pieces. And Yahtzee was like, can I come along as well? And he's like, yeah, sure. I'm sure he'd be fine with that. That one episode, if I was actually prepared and capable and had any form of monetization, that could have been a very different life. It was at a point where I believe the traffic from the server that I had, Matt from Australian Game had very nicely kind of portioned off a bit of their server to give to me to host my own website and host the podcast episodes and the RSS stream and all of that. It hit a noticeable bump that he was like, oh shit, we've actually got a bit of traffic going through Crow's site. This is awesome. This is interesting. What did he do? Oh, he had Yahtzee on, and there's like 25,000 people a day like downloading this episode and listening to it. And I've gone back and listened to that episode, and my fucking God, I do not say much, but for that one, like that was a very big thing to do for somebody who didn't. I'm very cognizant. I don't like to ride off other people's coattails. It's just not something I'm comfortable with. But to have somebody actively go, no, you're somebody I like. We get along. I want to help you and do these things. It is a very humbling experience. But the reason I will always stand behind Yahtzee, no matter what, is he is the hardest working man I know, and I think that I've ever met, bar one other person in my life thinking about it, and that's my father. When when I met Yahtzee and we got to know each other better, we we not in a sense bonded, but we had a lot of similar interests. We grew up in a similar fashion in that we're both quite nerdy people who really loved reading. I adore Terry Pratchett and Robert Rankin and Douglas Adams. I grew up on all of those books from my mum, and he had a very similar thing. Like his mum encouraged reading, and it's something we both share. But also with a lot of video games, he had spent so much time really diving in. Yes, OMG Turtles. I love Pratchett when I was growing up. It's still to this day. I The Amazing Maurice is a fantastic one. I still there are two lines that always sit in my mind when it comes to Pratchett, which is describing Nanny Og taking off with the grace of a duck with a shot wing, which I always refer to when you when you see somebody just having that rough takeoff in a car, like a learner, like clutch hopping, bunny hopping. I just think that they go off with the grace of a duck with a shot wing. Or my favorite, which is gods like to play simple games like snakes and ladders with greased rungs, because I still love that mental image of people trying to play against gods and just not being able to win. he he's an absolute influence, and especially if you've read Yahtzee's books, Mogworld, Mogworld, Jam, and actually now so many books. Actually, he's a very successful published author. Here's the thing: getting to know each other better would. I'd always ask him for assistance in writing. I have off camera a rather large collection of notebooks. I have a rather large collection of notebooks. One of the things that I do a lot of is that, much like anybody else here who is listening to me, I spend my work days and my free time listening to other content creators on any topic, any subject, anything. If it's interesting and engaging, if the person you're listening to is passionate about what they're talking about, I can listen to a breakdown about how cheese is made, or how the aqueducts were built out of particular versions of river rocks, as opposed to anything else. Oh my God, we've got another one, another first time chat from a spam bot. So we are going to ban them live. Oh, I love it. It's fantastic. They are spam. There we go. Tell us more. Spam is spam. Ah, I love it. It makes me feel fantastic that somebody running the spam bot has been like, this person's getting you no attention whatsoever, no engagement. They've got fuck all viewers. I'ma spam them. Okay, so away from the fact that I've just gotten excited about a spam message. See, this is the excitement that is my life. Over all of that time, because I listen to a lot of people, I tend to write a lot of concepts and story outlines, show ideas, everything else. I think I've mentioned it before last week. I'm actually finalizing and finishing up an idea I'm hoping to record in the next couple of weeks with Special Nick, hopefully, if he's still on board with the idea, for a show with him. Now, I was originally pitching this to him as something that I was going to give him to be able to find a host and basically give it to him as a fully fleshed out idea with episodes written and everything that he would be able to do with someone for his content, for Xbox Era, or for whatever he wants to do, even if it was on his own channel. But With everything else, with time, I've been like, okay, I'll do one to basically prove whether the concept works, and from there, if everything works well, then if I've got time to be able to host, I'll happily do it if the dynamic's there. If the dynamic's not there, if it'd work better with someone else, then I'm happy to step back and let Nick go on with someone else, because it's all about, I think this idea works with him, like he's the key to it. But you've got to have a host that works well in conjunction with it to kind of feed that energy. That's something you need to kind of keep together. But with all of these ideas, all of these elements, over all the years that I knew Yahtzee, whenever I hit roadblocks, I'd ask him just about not how to get around an idea or how to solve a problem, but I'd just put it to him and just go, how do you focus in on the thing that's important? And he would give me fantastic advice of, instead of worrying about having the right answer first time, just write the wrong answer, but just write it and keep writing it, because the most important thing is getting it out of your head and onto a page. That piece of advice has helped me so much throughout the years since. And here's an idea. So this was Yahtzee's structure for his weekdays. I believe from like 2009 on. I think it would have been like late 2009 onwards. He doesn't have to wake up early, but he wakes up at 6 a.m. So wakes up at 6 a.m. He went out and have breakfast. He would write 2 pages of his novel. They didn't have to be good pages. He was just like, I have to write 2 pages. For however long it took that day, he would write 2 pages. Whether they were good, bad, or otherwise, didn't matter. 2 pages. 2 A4 pages. Done. Once that was done, then he would go on to actually reviewing a game. So he would then be on the couch at home playing the game with his little notebook off to the side, and I saw the way he put little notes and like, this feels janky. Like one of the notes, I cannot remember the game it was about, but it was like, the control and movement feels like this game. And it was like a PS2 game from way early in the PS2 era. And I asked him about it. I was like, what do you mean in that sense? And he's like, oh, that game, it was really floaty. Like, you didn't actually feel like when your character was moving, it felt like they were moving through treacle or like golden syrup. It almost felt like the animation was too slow, like your character wasn't really connecting with the world. And then like 2 weeks later, the episode comes out about that game, and he refers to the character as moving through treacle. So in talking to him, in asking him about it, he'd already kind of come up with the thing that he was going to use as a slam on it, but would just work its way, where he was never completely scripted and sold on the idea. And he would say that like in the week that he would do things, it was always that he would start, like in a sense, on Wednesday would be the episode coming out, or Thursday our time, like Wednesday he would submit it. So then as soon as he was finished with one game, he was on to the next. But it was always he would have like one day to write the script and record it, and then it was kind of like assembling everything in Movie Maker. I think it was Windows Movie Maker that he was using for years. But this was his structure, and he would work from 6 o'clock in the morning. Basically, once he was up 6 o'clock in the morning, and then he would finish at about 5:30 in the afternoon. OMG Turtles. I did a creative writing degree at university, and the hardest topic to teach was how to get creative headspace. There's no such thing as divine inspiration or dramatic realization. It comes down to hard work and getting lucky. That was one of the biggest things that he taught me about it, was that all of the ideas, all of the elements, everything that you can do to try to pull yourself into the right space to come up with the most amazing idea, that is near impossible to do. It can just be getting down to take the thing out of your head and put it onto something. You've then removed it from your head. Once it's out of your head and you can see it, you can critique it. You can be critical on what's happening there, and how when it's in black and white, you can then go, no, this idea won't work for X and Y and Z reasons, which then allows you to then go, well, if this won't work for this reason, what will? Or how do I then change one of these previous things to make this as an exit, a realistic solution, something that works? And especially for that, like, the back and forth for all of those moments, all of those elements were fantastic. Then probably one of the other greatest things was his willingness and ability to help me understand gaming and critique so much better than how I did. I tended to have, I before I met him, I had a very kind of straight line point of video games, which was, I like it, I don't like it. And it can be as simple as, this game just doesn't gel with me. Nothing wrong with that. But when talking about the games that I liked, I wasn't able to express and go, I like these things, or these are things that I like in these games. It'd just be like, no, I like it. And he was the first person to ever kind of really push on that point and go, but what is it about those things? And helping me understand some of the things about narrative and direction and everything else. If you're a fan of H.Y.C.Y.BH, you've probably heard in some of his articles, I believe it is, that he wrote about the bar stool of gameplay. That there's story, there's gameplay, and there's catharsis. Now, I think he's actually expanded that to include a fourth leg, but I cannot remember what that was. It's been a while since that. But the three-legged bar stool, the story, gameplay, catharsis. That was a discussion that H.Y.C.Y. and I had in Mana Bar around, I think it was October of 2010. It was one of those kind of Wednesday, Thursday nights at the bar when it wasn't the weekend, so it wasn't absolutely jam-packed with people, but it was still busy enough that, you know, things are good, but it's quieter. And Wombats had gone out to grab something to eat with one of our friends, and it was just us sitting around, and we were just chatting about, you know, just bits and pieces. Oh, what are you playing? Oh, I'm playing this. And he was like, hey, can I run an idea by you? And I was like, yeah, sure. And he brought up the story, gameplay, catharsis, and explained, because I was immediately like, well, what does story refer to? Is it just the story of the game? Is it the story of characters? Is it? And he's like, no, it's the entire idea. Like, how you tell a story, whether it's through environmental storytelling, whether it's audio logs, whether it's character arcs and everything else. That's something that drives people to engage with the game. If one of those legs is stronger and the others are not so weak that the stool is completely unstable, then it still works. It can be an effective game, but a game that has enough strength in all three of those legs will stand a lot better against other games where it is stronger in story but worse in gameplay, worse in catharsis. And since then, for the years down the line, in one of my notebooks here, I've actually got the expanded version of what he started with, because we then spoke about it on and off over the years until he left in 20 was it 2014 or 2016? I cannot remember. I think it was 2016, 2015, 2016. H.Y.C.Y.B.H got his O1 visa and moved to the US. So that was a very weird event. If anything, it was catching up with him at a mate's launch party for the game that he'd solo developed. We were out having drinks, and he was like, "Hey, Crow, would you have a ute or a van?" And I'm like, yeah, we've got a ute for work. Why? What's up?" And he's like, "I'm moving to the US next weekend, like Sunday next weekend." And I'm like, "Oh shit, really?" And he was like, "Yeah, I got an O1 visa and everything." I'm like, "Oh, fantastic. So what do you need the van for?" "Well, I can't really take my house with me. I just get to take like my laptop and clothes and kind of important papers and bits and pieces, but I have to leave on Sunday because, like, for my visa to be accepted, I have to arrive in the United States in between this date and this date." And it's like, "Oh shit, okay, cool." So basically, I found out that he was leaving, and inside a week organized a van and everything else, picked up Gabe from his place. We went out to H.Y.C.Y.B.H's apartment, basically emptied his entire apartment into a into a Renault traffic van, and then shook his hand and been like, "It's been fantastic to know you, dude. Like, all the best in the US." And off he went. Even stranger turn of events, but that'll be a story for another time. Throughout all of the time that I've known him, H.Y.C.Y.B.H was writing books. He was writing novels and got accepted by Dark Horse for his first book, Mogworld. In probably one of the sweetest and funniest moments in my life, Wombats and I went round to our friend Matt's place, and Matt was a good friend of ours. He was also H.Y.C.Y.'s roommate. So we've gone around there to go see Matt, and we were basically, I think we were catching up with him and his girlfriend, and we were all heading out to grab dinner or something that night. We've walked in, and hey guys, blah blah blah, and H.Y.C.Y.'s come out of his room, and he's seen Wombats and I, and been like, "Oh my god, guys, I've got some amazing news to tell you." And I'm like, "Oh, yeah, cool shit, dude. What's up?" And he's basically gone, I'm going to be a published author. Like, I've gotten a publishing deal. Like, I'm going to be an author. Now, for as long as I've known H.Y.C.Y.B.H, he always wanted to be an author. So this was incredible. And we're like, "Holy fucking shit." Like, gave him a hug and like, "Holy fuck, dude, this is amazing. When did you find out?" And he was like, "I only found out like 3 hours ago." And Matt, who's in the kitchen just off to the side, has gone, "What else did it say in the email, Yachts?" And he went, "Oh yeah, it said in the email that I shouldn't tell anyone." Shit. At which point, Wombats and I have just burst out laughing, and we're like, "Your secret's safe with us. We will not tell anybody." And it was like, I think a week or two later, that Dark Horse actually put out a press release saying that they were publishing his first book. Next stream on Friday, I will bring my copy of. I've got two signed copies of Mogworld. One of them is the copy that I bought for my mum, and that she's read and sent back to me, and I had it signed for her from Yahtzee. My mum absolutely adores his fucking books because she loves Terry Pratchett. She's the person who got me into it, so it was right up her alley. But the other copy, the copy for us, the copy for Wombats and I, we've gone to Mana Bar where where he's actually there to sign copies of the books for people, and people were coming in and getting his item. Oh my god, I love Zero Punctuation and everything. It's like, okay, yeah, cool. What's your name? And signing the books and everything. I was like, oh, I'll go grab another copy. I'll get that signed and send that off to mum. So Wombats is standing there with Yards, and she's got the copy for us. And he's like, do you want me to sign it? And she's like, yeah, sure, go ahead. And he's opened up the page and he's gone to Mr. and Mrs. And he's realized he doesn't actually know my first name, my real first name, nor my last name, nor now through marriage, Wombat's last name. So this moment that Wombat's described to me is that he just stops and looks at it and just goes, to Mr. and Mrs. Beck. So there is a copy of Mogworld in our house that is to Mr. and Mrs. Beck. Yahtzee Crenshaw. And it's one of those moments where you just, I like, for all of these amazingly funny moments and everything else, long discussions, and actually being willing to not only just talk on what you know, but helping people understand and give them knowledge. Like, if you ever get the opportunity to speak to Yahtzee Crenshaw at an event or anything else, the old kind of rule of thumb was tell him your favorite game and he'll tell you why you're wrong. I always gave him shit for that because I was like, how would you feel if you were on the opposite end of that and, you know, like some of your literary heroes went, you tell me your favorite author and I'll tell you why you're wrong for liking them. And he was like, yeah, I know, but it makes it easier, which is always just an amusing thing for it. Yeah, throughout everything, for all the time that I've known him, one of the hardest working guys. So in the 17, I think it is this year, 17 years that he's been doing Zero Punctuation / fully Ramblematic, that entire time when he started doing Zero Punctuation, he was working in data entry. And then when the Escapist deal came up, he was earning enough to be able to start, you know, covering himself, and then was doing very much well enough. But throughout all of that time, he was also writing and developing his own games. If you have played Poacher, which was a free-to-play game that he developed in, I think it's Adventure Game Studio, could be one of the other ones, but he had it on his website, and I think he eventually put it up onto Steam. Damn it, I don't have Steam on here. Poacher video game, Yahtzee, I'm sure. Yeah, it's on archive.org. Yeah, it's from 2012. Here's the yeah, it's on his old website, the Fully Ramblematic, and it is a free-to-play game. If you play and finish that game, you will see in the credits there is a thank you to the Scarecrow because he was sending that out to a few people. I think his girlfriend at the time, myself, and a few others, and we were playing it and giving feedback. I was working insane hours, so I was only able to play small amounts of it. But he was throughout everything, throughout all the time, people going, "Oh, he's only playing a video game a week," and then doing like a funny 5-minute video, and that's it. No, he was writing novels, and I think he said that he had about 3 or 4 novels that weren't accepted, weren't really good enough. He didn't feel were up to snuff. So 3 or 4 novels. There was Poacher, Hatfall, the Consuming Shadow, and even now Starship Vagabond. All of those games were being written and developed by him, pretty much solo, across that entire time, while still doing a video a week, every fucking week. I think 51 weeks of the year. The only week that he would take off would be Christmas. And he has done that consistently for 17 years on the internet. There is no one I can think of. I would happily be proven wrong. If somebody can think of somebody who has had that consistent an upload schedule and a dedication to the quality of their work while also doing additional things, I would challenge them against Yahtzee Croshaw. He is one. I would still say to this day that I would consider him a friend. I hope he'd feel the same. OMG Turtles. That used to be my dream, to be a novelist. I can never think of a good premise though. I remember. Okay, so here's the truth and the story behind Yahtzee's second book, Jam. If you haven't read Jam, it is that a person, the protagonist, wakes up in Brisbane, in what is actually described as the very apartment building in which Yahtzee lived. I know because we went to many parties there. That overnight, the city has been immersed in 3 feet of man-eating strawberry jam, and that if you touch the jam with your body, it just you get eaten and disappear and basically dissolve into it. That was inspired by the 2011 floods that we had here in Brisbane, where Yahtzee and his roommate lived in Fortitude Valley. A couple of streets away, probably like maybe a 5-10 minute walk, was where Wombats and I lived in the city as well. So these floods took out a lot of suburbs, a lot of major roads, and it basically made Brisbane City, where we lived, an entire ghost town for about a week and a half. Now, in that week and a half, I was walking around the streets and it was eerily quiet because there's no one driving. Nobody's heading into work into the city because you couldn't get in because a lot of the roads through Brisbane were just cut off. In that water coming up and just lapping at the doorways and everything, but people being so kind of scared of it, like, don't go into the floodwaters, all of that. That was the weird idea that he used to just come up with a premise, which is you take something ordinary and the way people react to it and just add a pinch of the absurd. And that was where he kind of talked about that idea, is just how, like, place it somewhere as well that you know yourself. He describes buildings in Brisbane City that if you've lived here, if you've lived in the city, you know it. You know it right down to your little cotton socks. Like, there's a building that he describes in there that Brisbane people refer to as the Batman building. And it is like having my mum read that, and she hasn't been in Brisbane since 2000. I think she moved up there in 2006. But she worked in the city. She knows that skyline. And when he describes the skyline and that particular building, she called me that moment to be like, oh my God, like he was describing that. And it's exactly how I remember it, how I know it. That is tough as a novelist. But then taking the simple idea of how people react to a flood and then just putting some jam over the top of it. I remember somebody saying, like, maybe every idea just needs a little bit of jam to it. And I trust H.Y.C.Y.BH to kind of take that and then twist it in on itself as well to just make it a premise for something. But for everything, for as long as I've known him, still just one of the most hardworking people. All of these games, all of these videos, all of this content, and even when moving from Australia to the US, moving from somewhere that he knew, like I think from memory, H.Y.C.Y.BH came over here in 2005, 2006, and then kind of moving 10 years later to a city that had, luckily, I think had our mutual friend Praz living there, so he knew Praz. His girlfriend lived there, but that's got to be scary. But he's probably one of the only people that I've ever met in my life who has an ability to just kind of go and achieve, just do things. I very much love that guy. He's one of the people who teaches you a lot, but also just one of those good people. Like, fuck the haters. I suppose to any degree. Well, this has kind of gone way off track, but yeah, for everything, yeah. All of the kind of bits and pieces for everything we've covered today. I'm looking forward to the Sony State of Play tomorrow. I'm looking forward to seeing what is there. I am hoping that we see some really cool stuff from the Sony studios, because, it doesn't matter where you play as long as we're playing. But I think that should probably be it. I've been nattering away for about 2.5 hours solid. And I feel so much better about today, even though it has been, as I started this stream, it has been an absolute motherfucker. One of those days. Oh yeah, for Turtles, like, Jesus, it would be, I think, what time is it now there? It must be like 11:30 p.m. or sorry, 11:30 a.m. over there. Holy shit, it's like 12:20 over there. You got to be stopping and having lunch, my man. But and considering a day like today where it was, one thing goes wrong, one person isn't coming in, okay, that sucks. You have to roll with it. Another person isn't available, that sucks. Hope they feel better. You have to roll with it. You get into work and go, okay, cool, how are we going to manage these things? I've got one person when I would normally have 3. you kind of make things do, you try and get stuff done, and then the things that need to come in for you to be able to keep working, delay, you're not going to get it today, it's going to be tomorrow. You're not going to get this. This thing's wrong. And you just, like, all in all, today was one of the worst days for ever wanting a cigarette. I think I actually said to our new hire, he was just like, "You doing okay?" Because I'm just sitting there like, you know, one of those moments where you're just like, what I would normally do to relax or kind of get my center, it would be to stand there, have a cigarette, and just look at everything that's happening and go, okay, this thing can't happen, this thing can't happen, this thing can't happen. What can I do? What can I deliver? What can I achieve? And then you lay it all out in your head and you go, okay, this is how we're going to change things. And off you go. But if you don't have a cigarette to be able to do that, you're just sitting there and you're getting frustrated because you're like, I'm used to just doing this and being able to kind of fall inside your own head and have everything be good. But you can't do that. Can't have the cigarette. So today was tough, but I will admit, sitting here and chatting, doing a lot of chatting, but the back and forth is nice. Having new people drop in has actually been lovely. So I figure it's probably Dr. Penis was you, Has. I'm just going out on a limb here. Thanks for dropping by. I really do appreciate it. OMG Turtles, as always, the man who kind of locks down, makes these things happen. And Blue, I really do appreciate that. Thank you for promoting me in the Discord. I really didn't expect that, but thank you. And Cheeseworks, I thank you very much for dropping by. It's like I do appreciate the, you know, and Bryn and Max as well. It in the Twitch chat, these are the things that really, I love interacting with people, and everybody has great stories and elements, and I love being guided by people where I can talk. You've all met me, or you know me, or you've seen me for long enough. I can speak under wet concrete. I can just blather away, but I love the back and forth and the discussion that happens, because so many things will just pass over my head or I don't consider. And I love having that kind of push, the little push and pull, the ability to have things kind of guided towards a topic that maybe I haven't considered, or looking at something like Fair Call, where is it? Dr. Penis has. He always seems to want to talk badly about Sony, to be honest. That's fair call. But when he brought it up, I'm always willing to accept that criticism, which is that while everybody goes, you know, these people need to do better, those people need to do better, you need to speak about them on even keel, which is, you don't always need to praise people for what they're doing well, but you need to accept what they're not doing well and speak up on it. That, I think, is the equivalence that has to balance. People will go, this group is doing well for these things. So if they deliver something bad in that realm, that's okay. They've got good things that they've done. But if they've done terribly in other areas, you need to always make it present in mind. I think that's always a fair way to speak on certain things, because for how you critique is not by saying that the entire thing is terrible because of this small issue. It is saying, don't judge it as being terrible for this small issue, but always remember, for everything that they're doing good, there are things to improve. Improving is always the point. And that's the thing. A lot of people talk about Sony's presentation and go, oh, but a state of play and a showcase, it's always great. They haven't had some great showcases, or they haven't had some great state of plays. That's fine. You can't always have a killer show. Sometimes you're just going to be light on content. That's the way of it. But when everybody else is able to deliver great things and people start looking at you and going, well, what is it that you're doing next? What can we expect from you? And your answer to that is to clam up and go, we're not saying anything. If we don't say anything, we cannot be criticized for it. And whenever you bring up criticism, people go, well, what about E3 2015? E3 2015 is going to be 10 fucking years ago very soon. We don't, like, nobody really goes, oh, what about E3 2012 for Xbox? Or what about this E3 for Nintendo? We don't judge things based on what you've only done in the past. It's about what you're doing in the moment. And what Sony are doing in the moment is they're being very quiet because they don't want to speak too early. They want to make sure that they've got something solid. That's fair call. I will criticize and critique on the basis of, you cannot let your customers think that you do not care, because all it takes is one customer going, you don't give a shit. You're not doing anything for us. These guys are actually doing shit for me. I'm going to go over there. There is always that possibility, and there's always that thing. The last thing you'd want right now, regardless of what platform you're on, is for people to become complacent, arrogant, or to become disengaged with video gaming. Doesn't matter what platform. If it's Sony, Nintendo, Xbox, PC, whatever. The last thing you'd want right now is for people to become disengaged or disinterested in what's going on in gaming. And if one of the largest platforms out there is not doing enough to keep people engaged, that could be a big problem. Because then if they're out, then they're out. They may go onto mobile phones and they're just going to play Fortnite there, or Call of Duty. You may not ever get them on console again. It's a complete unknown. There are so many different elements to it. That's always why critique is there. That's why when it comes to Xbox putting games everywhere, people do question it. I go, we are going to find out. If people stop playing on Xbox, then people stop playing on Xbox. They're going to start playing those games on other platforms. Cool. But until it happens, we don't know. That's why I always look at it and go, let's find out. You only ever find out something. It is Schrodinger's console platform. It can be both alive and dead at the same time. But you're only going to find out once you open the fucking box. And you can only open the fucking box when you get to a point of measuring it. That's the point of absolute bullshit that I will leave you on tonight. All right. I appreciate everybody dropping by, popping in chats, and dropping by for the first time for those who popped in. Hopefully story time wasn't that boring. And yeah, if anything, I'm glad to have just shared a couple of the stories. I appreciate it, Turtles, for in the YouTube chat. Made the workday fly over for me. Max Horn, the the Discord server I'm on is actually the Xbox 2 Discord server, which I think is discord.gg/xb2. I think I'm going to pop that in there. And let me click on it, and yep, that's it. That is the Discord server I'm part of. It is just a very cool, it is a very cool and chill group that are basically together for the Xbox 2 podcast on YouTube, and where I met Turtles and Blue and many of the other people who've been here. Just a very relaxed, easy sort of place. Whole bunch of people who love talking video games and all other topics and bits and pieces in there. If I know that you do a lot of pub performances, Max, but if there's ever a point where I'm able to snag you, we might get you into the Discord to chat and everything. We might do something. Come on over. We have snacks from OMG Turtles. But for everything, I hope that everybody had a great time. I will reach out to you, Max, and actually, I know what I can do, because I have Twitch on here. I know who I'm following, which is show all of these. Where are you? Max. Hold on. This should all be here. No, we need... There we go. All right. I've got you on the follow, but I will, when I edit everything together for potential YouTube uploads and everything later, I will include your Twitch channel and bits and pieces on the YouTube stream as well. But with that, it has started raining here as well, that I've just heard on the roof. So I'm going to have a very wet and soggy run back to the house. But thank you, everybody, for being here. Thank you for everybody who chatted. Anybody who's watching later on any of these recordings, join the live chat sometime if you so choose. If you're in America, generally you're shit out of luck, because I'm doing this and it's like 4 a.m. for you. Sorry, not sorry. That's just how time zones work. But thank you very much. And I will be back in 2 days' time on Friday. And hopefully with some interesting shit from Sony. I'm hoping that we have some cool shit to watch. But thank you very much, everybody. Hope you have a great night. I'll catch you on Friday.